I want to start by saying, welcome, and let's, just for the group, some of them know you, some of them don't, but could you please take a few minutes and just talk a little bit about your background, your focus, how you came to be a professional coach, and just allow the group to get to know you a little bit.
First of all, Jonathan, thank you for the partnership. Always love teaming up with you and having these conversations, as well as just recognizing everybody that has chosen to step away from working in their business to work on their business by joining us today. That is an advanced move. I am looking to give you some insights in order to help you with your path as you're moving forward on your journey as well. A little bit about me is I'm a sports psychologist turned business coach. What I have seen is that there's a lot of similarities between high performing athletes and growth minded accounting professionals. And there are a couple of differences. The first one is our uniforms are a little bit different. Second is we are aiming for different numbers than athletes are. And the third one is athletes from the very beginning, peewees. They're having someone on the outside that is mentoring them, that might be coaching them. They are going to outside trainings in order to really achieve their peak performance as quickly as possible. Whereas business owners, we tend to be fiercely independent. We don't always like asking for help. As a result, we might achieve what we want, but the move forward to get to that point might take a little bit longer because we're a lot of times figuring it out on our own, and it gets pretty messy at times. And just one more thing is that from 2018 through 2021, I have been listed as one of the top 22 business coaches by HubSpot, and that has been a blessing as well. So that's a little bit back to me. Let's take it from there, Jonathan.
Okay, two things. One is that if anyone has a question along the way, please ask it in the chat. If you see us doing it, it's that we're both administrative. If you see us like doing other things, we're both administrating this webinar and we're giving this webinar, but we are paying attention to the chat and the questions, and we would love to have your participation in this, and we'll answer any direct questions. The second thing is that I just posted all of those links that I spoke to in terms of the announcements in the chat. So if you're interested in seeing the Gravity Legal or our previous webinar in terms of the messy cleanups, avoiding messy cleanups, that's posted. And then the LAP one for Marketing Focus for April is also there. And we might change that date because April 14th seems like a really dumb date to do an LAP meeting given tax season. So I think that easily could turn into a little bit later in April now that I look at that date. Loren, just to give the audience some context, because this is a multi-part series, and I can bring that screen back up or I can share it with the group. Can you just give the group a sense of, the overall mission of what you're trying to communicate and achieve through these series, and how this, this next, the focus on the ideal client, how this fits into the greater context of what your coaching is and what you're trying to communicate to the audience?
What you and I have really been talking about is how to best support people in the LeanLaw community, because so often we get the skill set to be able to do our work really, really well. However, we don't always have the insights on to how to run our business. And as a result of it, a lot of times our business ends up running us. Because of that, you and I came up with these topics in order to be able to increase profitability without feeling like a slave to your practice. That is really the bottom line, is giving you those insights in order for you to take charge, run your business, have it be more profitable without having to sacrifice other parts of your personal life in order to do so.
Okay, I want to do a quick poll just to find out who's here, and then we're going to get into the meat of the conversation. So this is a three-question poll. So if everyone can just take a minute, it's just to help us kind of know who's with us and have you, attended a previous one. So the poll is open, and I can see some people voting, and I want to get it to at least 75%. So we're going to give it another, I don't know, minute or so. Cool. Almost ready. So cool. I'm gonna end that one poll. And so what was interesting is there's about 40% of you folks have never I'm sorry, 56 have never attended a Loren Fogelman webinar. So Loren, we got to be good today. The majority of you have, well, yeah, about
If nothing else, will
44%
be
have,
entertaining.
yeah, 44% of you, law clients are part of your practice. 22% are wanting law clients to be there, and the other is sort of a mix. And the majority of you are connected to our company, so thank you. Okay, Loren, we want to take I want to take a step back because pricing is so critical in the context of this. So just to familiarize your group and to sort of bring this into context, can you kind of tell me a little bit about your sort of pricing practice? Because you're an expert at the system, and overview like that formula for me so that, you say this a lot, how they can increase income without having to work more. I mean, that's sort of one of your mantras, and you sort of have a formula for that. So what is that formula, and how does that play in with the niche or ideal client?
What I focus on is really showing accounting professionals how to double their income working half the time. Basically, it is from my system called the Ultimate Pricing Blueprint. I will put the whole 5 steps in the chat for you. They're there right there. But if you
Yep.
follow this formula, you can absolutely start earning more today without having to feel like a slave to your business, like you're continuing to sacrifice hours. The very first thing has to do with ideal client. It is the topic that we are deeply diving into today, is how to know who you work best with and to be able to make that decision in order to cherry pick your clients. Because when you bring in everybody, even in the beginning, when you're doing that because you might need the cash flow, later on down the road, some of those legacy clients are not a great fit and they actually lower your profits. Therefore, not everybody that has skin or breathes is someone that you necessarily want to sign on. And we'll go more into that today. And then the next one is how to communicate your value, because as accounting professionals, the information and the fact that you know the story behind the numbers is so important for business owners, for practice owners, for attorneys. And that when you're able to explain to them what the value is of signing on with you, having accurate financials, having their trust accounting up to speed to where it's squeaky clean, then they see why they ought to work with you instead of maybe moving on to other alternatives. The third step is how to package your services, because when you do that, you're starting to bundle things together that achieve a specific outcome and maybe is for a particular type of client. And that way you are now enrolling someone based upon an outcome as opposed to focusing on the tasks that you do, which has them see your services as an investment instead of a cost. And then number 4 is how to price your services, because when you're trading dollars for hours, or you're doing a fixed fee, which is based on time as well as cost, you're actually leaving money on the table and you could be earning more. I will just let you know real quickly, I had a conversation with a new client yesterday about this very thing. She was going to charge a client, I believe it was going to be $400 a month for her services. We recalculated it based upon the value to this client, and she was able to price it at $1,600 a month. It wasn't any difference in what she was doing, but we looked at the value from her client's perspective instead of her perspective and agreed that the value was actually going to be $1,600, not $400, which was a 4x increase. And what a difference that's going to make for her practice. And then the 5th step is how to be able to master those enrolling conversations, especially if you don't like the sales part, and how to be able to do it where you're taking charge, you're slowing down your onboarding process, and you get to select whether someone is ideal for working with you, or if you think they're a headache client, then you just bless them and let them move on. That is pretty much the 5 steps to the ultimate pricing formula.
Yeah, and I want to add one thing when it comes to lawyers, and we're going to talk about this in the ideal, but I want to just speak to one little thing on value. It's one thing knowing the numbers and how to reconcile, but understanding a law firm's business and how it operates and having some of the vernacular. When you then talk to that lawyer about engagement, that value that you understand their business is enormous because it puts such prestige in you being an accounting professional that not only can help facilitate, the bookkeeping, but actually bring insights to them. So you said you kind of the value of knowing your numbers, but being niched and knowing that law, we see it. I mean, I see it in how I'm selling to attorneys, that now that I understand the mechanics of their business and understanding the nuances and where their pain is, I'm not talking about how LeanLaw works. I'm talking about the value of LeanLaw relative to their business, and it changes the complete complexion and dimension of it. So, and focusing on law does that. So let's move forward.
I just want to add one
yeah.
more thing, and you and I riff every now and then. So one of the things, just to be able to take what you're saying and highlight it a little bit more, is when you're having these conversations, Jonathan, from what conversations that we've had, is you're focusing on the outcome and the benefits to them. You're not focusing on the task or the different features that are included in the LeanLaw product. And that is something for everybody that's joining us today to think about when you're talking with a new client. It's not about all the tasks that you're doing and all the reports. Think about what those benefits and outcomes that those clients have because they sign on with you and that you're taking care of their financials. So
Yeah.
thanks for going there.
Well, I'm going to say one more thing on that. If you all go look at your respective websites and you say what you do, and everyone goes accounts payable, accounts receivable, HR, all these sort of things that we would expect an accounting professional to do. It's like, of course you do that. You would not be an accounting professional if you didn't do like AP, AR, and all those other tasks. And it's like, what's the value of that? Like when that learned attorney drops into their website, what do they get? And we have to sometimes in LeanLaw talk about features because you have to check the box. But a really great sales conversation rises above that, and you can start to have a really sophisticated interaction around the business problems they're trying to solve. And that's when they just go, I'm buying that software. Okay, let's move on. So, by nature, and I've seen this in my own professional services background, that we tend to be generalists, right? We're out there hunting for clients and we're looking for people, and someone says, especially in the beginning of a business, someone says, "Hey, I'll take this. I'll hire you." So when you look at someone being generous, working with a variety of clients, what's the impact of working with, almost, I'm being a little bit, I don't know, I'm exaggerating a little bit when I say anyone who walks in the door, but what's the effect does that happen when you're not necessarily focused on a practice, on accounting professional's practice?
Well, it makes you a jack of all trades, which means that you really are not an expert at any one because you're just working with such a wide variety. However, I want to say, even if you niche into the attorney and legal space, there's a huge variety just within that particular niche. And therefore, I want to put that out there too. But a lot about a general wide variety, but you don't go deeply into any one thing. Then when you were talking, Jonathan, you were saying about being able to understand their business and give them those insights, because now it positions you as an investment as opposed to a cost with your services, because
Totally.
you're able to give them those insights that's going to help them with their particular business and how their business model is set up. That is the benefit of really starting to move into a specific niche. The other thing is that you do not need to work with everyone. Just because they walk in the door, they are ready to write out a check for your services, does not mean you ought to say yes to everybody, because I've seen it. We're service oriented. Sometimes you say yes, even though you have a gut feeling that you shouldn't, or that maybe something is just a little bit off. And then later on, you realize that they are going to be a headache client, they're a PETA client, they don't really respect you. And you get resentful, or you're not really giving them the best service that you can because they drain you. And therefore, I want you to start to select who you work with instead of just letting it be a one-way selection where they select you, but you don't have any say in that. The other thing is, when you're a generalist, it makes marketing very, very difficult. You blend in, it's very vanilla because you're trying to appeal to everybody. And it's difficult for a client to be able to figure out why you don't stand out at all. Therefore, when you're blending in and you're just like everybody else, similar to those websites that you were talking about.
I was going to bring us right back to the websites at the end.
And I just want to say, when you put AR, HP, and AR, HR on your websites, your clients might not actually know what those terms mean because those are industry specific. And that's something to think about. And we can just riff on websites for a long time, but I'm not going to go there right now, Jonathan. But the other thing is, when you're a generalist, it makes you a commodity instead of an investment, which means that it does require you to remain somewhat price competitive, which will attract those price sensitive clients. And the bottom line is, this is when you're working with a wide variety of clients. A lot of times your business runs you instead of you running your business. It's not efficient and you're not as effective as you could be.
You know, I was going to kind of comment just a little behind the scenes on LeanLaw, and that, you know, we've kind of identifying our ideal client, you know, from a, there's different attributes about what they do, but there's, you know, and we've actually put, I wouldn't say deterrence, but we made a conscientious decision that for the non-ideal clients, we're just not going to work as hard, because in our business, anyone can buy it, right? We don't prohibit someone from buying it. There's no vetting. Can you buy LeanLaw? You can just go purchase it online. But what we've done is we've actually put, I wouldn't say barriers, but more work for the non-LeanLaw, the non-ideal clients. And every resource that we do, like every time we spend a cycle of resource with the dollar or human, it's, are we supporting what we define in LeanLaw as this ideal client? It's all we do. The only thing I would say on the website thing, just as one note, as a homework for everyone, is go look at your website after this and ask yourself, is this attracting your ideal client? Is this speaking to your value? Because I think you'll find that, you know, when you don't have that really well articulated in your site, you become absolutely commoditized. Okay, I have a poll. We're doing a poll, very exciting. I'm going to launch the poll. I'm getting better at polls, Loren. So to the group, do you have an ideal client? Yes, no, maybe.
We're going for progress, not perfection.
Yes.
And if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. I want to make sure that we get them answered. And even if we don't answer them here, we will answer them afterwards then.
Okay, I'm going to close this poll. And what it said is that the majority of you, the vast majority of you, either have niched or work in several industries. Only a fraction work with everyone. So that's good that the majority have done that. So, okay, I'm going to ask a really fundamentally basic question. And why would someone choose an ideal client? And I know to the group, we've already sort of talked a little bit about that, but I think it's important that Loren speaks to this explicitly, the benefits of you know, an ideal client. So Loren, you know, why choose an ideal client?
And if people want to put in the chat why they chose an ideal client, why they chose a niche, would love to have them put that out there too. But I believe that you work better with some than with others. Not everybody is going to really sync up with you really beautifully. You're going to have some people that you're just maybe having friction with. It feels like sandpaper. And then other people, it is just, they're lovely to work with. Therefore, just recognize that not everybody is going to be a best fit for you and your services. A lot of times, though, when I talk about ideal clients, people are like, I don't know who that is. I don't even know where to start. Well, then let's start with who isn't an ideal client. What are some of the qualities of people that you don't work well with that they possess? And if you want to put that in the chat, would love to hear what some of those things are that makes someone a non-ideal client, a headache client, a Peter client for you. And that is a great way to start, is maybe with knowing what you don't want or who you don't want to work with. And then by being able to identify those things, you also start to get clarity with who you do want to work with. I'm going to give you an advanced move. From a personality perspective, your ideal client is either similar to you in personality characteristics.
Really?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
or they're the
really?
opposite of you.
Oh, that's
They're,
interesting. I
they're
didn't never,
either,
I'm like in my head, like thinking about my clients that I like and dislike.
you see,
Um,
Jonathan had no idea I was going to say this. I get to surprise
no,
him
no, no,
all the
that's,
time.
I know a lot of your shtick and I don't know that. So that's
But
awesome.
but
Explain
that's
that.
something to really think about. It simplifies the process. Either they have qualities that are very similar to you, because we tend to hang out with people who are just like us when we are networking, choosing our
Yeah.
friends, people that we enjoy being with, or they tend to be just opposite of you. Some of the best business partnerships are two opposites, where one person is the visionary and the other person is more of the systems, procedures, that grounding force. Those are some of the best partnerships. And that would be true for you with your clients also. I know for me that my clients tend to be the opposite of me. They're
Hmm.
not just like me. And that it is a beautiful fit when we get to work together, because there's things that they see in me that they want in themselves too. And I can help them move the needle forward in that direction of really taking charge of their business much faster than they would on their own, because they might tend to overthink about it. They might be risk adverse, and they don't want to have what might feel like an uncomfortable conversation with someone. But the other thing about the ideal client part is there's a niche and there's a specialty. A lot of times people think that they're synonymous, but they're two very different things. A niche is who you serve. Who are the people that you serve? It could be industry, such as the legal services. It could be within the legal services, and maybe you serve a particular type of practice. The other thing is it could be a personality. Maybe it is newly widowed women. That could be a niche also, even though they're not in a particular industry or profession. The other part is a specialty. A specialty is what it is that you do. What is the outcome that your clients get as a result of using your services? I tend to have a niche as well as a specialty. My niche is accounting professionals. It didn't happen overnight. It was a process that I eventually came to realize and finally claim. And the specialty is by helping you to earn more without feeling like a slave to your business. So I work with the pricing piece and helping you really take charge of as being the CEO instead of more of the technician, even if you're a solo operation. So that is it as far as why you want to choose an ideal client and some things to consider.
Two comments to that. So I just want to give a few examples in the law, and then David had a question I'm going to answer in a second. So the first thing, like an example of a niche and a specialty in law is you might have a niche of law firms that are run in partnerships, meaning they have 2 to 5 principal partnerships, right? So they have 2 to 5 principal partners, and then your specialty might be attorney compensation tracking. So specialty is a fundamental skill in this instance that you know a lot about compensation tracking. But when you look at a law firm in terms of niches, you're saying, I really like the composition. My ideal client has 2 to 4 partners. And with that, the dynamic of a firm can be. It also might be that a specialty might, to me, a niche might be, I work with contingent firms. So firms that their income is derived by the outcome of a matter. So think personal injury. You negotiate a settlement, and your specialty might be the settlement piece, right? So you understand and you work in that sort of personal injury law as a specialty, or excuse me, as a niche, but your specialty is the settlement, helping law firms distribute that money after a case is settled. It's a core pain point for the firm. So that's how it kind of works in law. David asked the question, how do you break into the law firm niche? And obviously, a lot of you are already here. I'm going to give you my thoughts very quickly. The first is intentionality. Loren's talking a lot about the intentionality here, about knowing your niche, who your ideal customer is, and all these things. It's about having the intention that I want to work with law. And I know that sounds obvious, but sometimes that is mistaken. The second way to kind of begin to get your toes in the water is there's a tremendous amount of online community of people who are servicing law firms. And we can share some of that later, but through Facebook and other online forums, you'll see people talking about law. The third thing is that many companies like LeanLaw have dedicated programs to help create relationships with accounting partners. And ours, I can see a bunch of names on the list that people are part of our community. And I have referred business and they have referred business to us. So you're actually getting there. This is the fourth that I think is the most important. If you want to look, if you're intentional and you go out and start meeting lawyers and talk to them, even through your friends and your friends network, you will begin to develop the vernacular and understanding how law firms work and operate. And with that, and you say, I want to now work with law firms, just announcing it, building a website, being intentional about how you broadcast, it will start to attract those laws. And again, this is a digression from what we're talking about today, but I wanted to answer that question because it was specific. So I'm going to get back to, we have a poll now, Loren. I think am I in the right place for the poll?
No, we're on number 6.
Oh, nope. Thanks. Sorry. I appreciate that. Sorry, I moved ahead,
We're
staged the
all-
poll. And so we're talking a lot about niche and knowing your ideal client. So again, kind of talking very explicitly and even in most fundamental terms, what's the benefit of this? What do you see as the benefit that translates to the accounting professional as they begin to really embrace the idea of niching and their specialty?
Well, overall, it makes things easier instead of harder. I'm going to just actually talk a little bit about me. Once I made the decision to move into the niche of focusing on accounting professionals, I knew exactly where to put all my efforts as far as marketing goes and messaging. I knew which conferences I wanted to go to because I wanted to go to conferences where my ideal clients go, which would be QuickBooks Connect, Scaling New Heights. There's several other ones out there that I started going to. As a result of that, I started then getting asked to speak at those conferences because of the fact that I'm also now niched and very, very aware of it. When I'm going on social media, my posts or what I'm putting out there is very specific for accounting professionals. I'm not talking to other types of service-based entrepreneurs. And this is true for you because as I'm consistently putting things out there, now opportunities are coming to me. And that's how we connected, Jonathan, was because of me developing that niche and you found me. And therefore, I'm not having to do all the heavy lifting of opening my own doors any longer. Now doors are being opened for me. And therefore, let me just break it down a little bit more, is that as you start to shift from that generalist to a specialist, or even a specialist within the attorney field, is that you can set higher fees. Let's face it. If you're going to go to use an attorney who is a specialist is going to be charging a higher rate than one that is a generalist and does a little bit of everything. And this is true for your practice as well. They recognize it because that's common in their practice, and they will respect that in your practice also. The other thing is that you now are filling your practice with high value clients who respect you. Well, the beautiful thing with that is, according to research by Intuit, about 64% of your clients ought to be coming from referrals. Well, if you're filling your practice with these high value clients, guess who they hang out with? Other high value potential clients that are just like them. They're going to start talking about how you've made a difference, giving them peace of mind. They don't have to worry about their trust accounting anymore. They have more profitability and not writing off as much on uncollected fees from clients. And as a result of that, there's been changes in their cash flow, which has allowed them to grow their practice. And so they're going to be telling other people about you and referring them. And the other thing is, as you start to really develop your particular specialty and niche, your efficiency rises and you become more effective, which means that you no longer need to attach your fees to time. You can attach them to the value that you offer, and you can then make more without having to work any additional hours.
Yeah, and I'm going to make two little sidebar comments about niching. We have a guest online who's a friend of mine, Linda Artesani, and she's out, and I welcome everyone to chat with her on Facebook and other places but she's the poster child for intentionality about being law and the derivative effect of how it's shaped her business, in the sense that she made a very explicit decision to work with law, and now she's even niched even further into the law in terms of what her ideal client is. And I remember her telling me about a year ago or something like that, she was really excited because she got her first organic client. And what it meant was that she became the brand she became a brand when people were looking for an accounting professional who knew QuickBooks and could support law firms. And that she didn't have to work to get these clients. They just saw her as that person. And when she walks in the door, her credibility speaks for itself because of her long tenure of it. And it's all because of her focus and niche. I mean, she's super smart, she's a really capable person, and all those things contribute to that. But it was also about her intentionality with that. And I think that's important. And the second thing, I'm thinking of another person who's part of our community. And I remember her telling me how freaked out she was about trust accounting. And it was this almost this block because it's this fundamental thing for law firms. And she said the first time I had to do a trust accounting, it took her like reconcile 1 month's trust account. It took her like, a half a day. I mean, it was just like 12 hours of work. And then she, the next time it took 6. And by now she's like, it's just a core competency because she niched and she does it so frequently. This fundamental thing is now just something she does, and she can talk about the value of compliance as a function of reconciliation versus the utility of it, right? So the utility is I can just reconcile, but the value is compliance to a law firm, right? They can mitigate the potential of having issues with their bar association. So that's the difference between the value of your work versus the utility of reconciliation. When she talks about compliance, she can charge 4x. When she talks about just doing reconciliation, she talks, it's the 400 versus the 600. Okay. So we've spent a lot of time talking about like ideal clients and niching. So let's look at the inverse of this, which is tell me some characteristics. Let's talk a little bit about a non-ideal client. What does this look like? And I'm sure all of you, and Loren said, I'd love to hear your, like everyone has a different take. I'm sure there's some similar characteristics, but Loren, what do you see from your, coaching standpoint of how you see a non-ideal client?
Well, I have a couple of things. Is first, they are very price sensitive. They might be challenging you on your invoices. They might be questioning why their fees might be so high 1 month, especially if you're doing hourly billing where you're giving them an itemized invoice. So they're just challenging you regarding your fees because they're more loyal to price than to actually you as their bookkeeper, accounting professional. The other thing is that there's some clients that keep you waiting. They might keep you waiting on responses to inquiries. Maybe they keep you waiting on payments if you're getting paid at the end of the month after you send an invoice, as opposed to getting paid before you actually start the month and do the service. Or maybe they are keeping you waiting when you have client meetings set up with them and they are always running late with an excuse and never on time. So price sensitive, they keep you waiting. Other things is they are asking for favors or exceptions without expecting to pay for them. The next thing is they might not appreciate or respect you. They actually might be relatively abusive towards you, and that is never okay. Actually, every time that I've had a business, we have had no abuse policy. We have a no tolerance policy for that. And if anybody is abusive towards one of our employees, or one of our employees is abusive to somebody else, we have policies in place to address that, and we'll go ahead and actually terminate those clients. We just have no tolerance for that whatsoever. And I want you to encourage the same for you and your firm as well. And then the last thing is they treat you like an employee. So they might be price sensitive. They keep you waiting. They ask for favors without expecting to pay for it. They don't appreciate or respect you, and they think that you're an employee for them.
Yeah, and I want to add 2 little comments to that because I kind of see it in a slightly different way. I think one characteristic of a bad client is that you're constantly having to work in their workflows, even though they're inefficient and non-modern. And this goes back to some of the things she's saying, but the idea that you're having to adopt their workflows, which are antiquated, and do extra work, and they are rigid and won't modernize. They won't work the way you want to work. And I know, like Linda, sorry, Linda, to keep talking about you, but obviously we work really close together. She's like, here's the playbook. These are the tools we work with. And so her ideal client says, great, I buy that. I buy into that. Another person I'm thinking of says, I'll work on anyone's tools. Like, so Linda's like very LeanLaw. I want to do LeanLaw, QuickBooks
Mhm.
Online, Bill.com, etc. She's got very clear with those tools. Whereas this other one's like, I just do whatever. I work with whatever tools, and she's like trying to figure out how to do billing in my case versus how to do billing in this other tool or trust reconciliation. And she says, hey, this is really antiquated, and they won't move to a better environment. So I want to say that when I listen to you talk about these non-ideal clients, in thinking about them, it seems like there's objective and subjective, meaning there's things that are very tangible, like they don't pay you,
Mhm.
maybe they're disrespectful, and then there's this sort of like, how do they make you feel kind of
Mhm.
way. Like I look at that and it's like, oh, I hate getting
Well,
that
that's
phone
the
call.
respect part where they don't respect you and they're telling you how to run your business and they want you to adapt to them instead of them seeing you as the expert where they're willing to adapt to your process. It's not very efficient for you as a firm owner. And the other thing is that even yesterday, I had a group coaching call with my accounting professionals that I work closely with, and we were talking about celebrating the fact that they are lowering their tolerance. They're not willing to be as tolerant and work with people according to their processes and continue to adapt because they recognize that it is not effective for them, it's not efficient, and it's taking more time than what it requires. And realizing that, okay, I see what's going on right now during tax season. Once I'm done with them during tax season, they can either choose to modify to how what our workflow is, or they can choose to move on.
And
And we celebrate that when they get to that
and
point and realize they.
and that is so fundamental in the sense that most of these firms want to modernize and they want better data. But then when you ask them to actually make change, there's all this friction and resistance. And those that will evolve turn into be great clients because you may start early on with lots of workflow enhancements, but then you rise above that and you start to get more into the relationship and shaping businesses and, you know, solving bigger problems. Those that won't and sort of think that they will, but then don't really ever change because there's an excuse, those are terrible clients because they just force you to work backwards. Okay, I have a poll.
We do have
Um,
a poll.
I have a poll. Yep. Um, so how long did you think about firing a headache client before doing so? And maybe this question could be stated a little differently. So just either on average or, you know, I don't know, just you can
No, they
answer.
they they get it. They're answering.
Yeah,
And
you're
I
right.
just want to say that some of the things that others feel is non-ideal client. Andrea said unresponsive client is what bothers her most. Linda's saying I'm firing some of my undesirable clients now. Total truth on price sensitive and they don't appreciate the work. So those were some of the things where we're all on the same page.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll. And what we ended up with is the top answer was months to fire that client. The second number was weeks. And I will say, well, actually still working
No,
with
we
them
had
30,
one person that said years
yeah,
or
years.
still
And I
working
will
with
say
them.
this, the same mindset goes with staff. So I'm just going to kind of show something additional. Like LeanLaw, we hired someone in our support team and I should have candidly let her go probably 2 to 3 months before that. And I wasn't decisive because we were kept on trying to make it work. And when I look back on that, which is very similar kind of mindset, it would have been better for both parties had I done it within, 90 to 120 days of her hire because I knew it wasn't working. I knew she wasn't going to be successful. I knew it in my intellectual mind, but it was emotional and maybe we'll try to coach it and it should have done that. So anyways, I got to keep on track, Loren, because we're going to
Yep,
do that. So
we're number 8.
I know I'm there. Yeah. Loren and I we go through and we prepare for that's what we hear that. So we have some questions and
Yep.
answers. Um, so if someone's a good fit, you know, then, what's the benefit? Why do you keep working with them? Oh, I'm
If
sorry. I
they're
said
not a
that
good,
wrong. If someone's not a good fit. So like, why do people extend, why is years for this person? I don't know who they are, but years or weeks or months, like, why do they allow this to sustain this bad client?
well, I'd love for people to share in the chat also why they held on to someone much too long. This goes with the fact that we have a very, very high tolerance level and that it is not to our best benefit because it is frustrating. it takes more time than necessary, and it lowers your profits. But some of the reasons why it comes down to is mindset. You know what you want to do, you just don't know how to do it. And as a result of that, it is possibly that there's a fear of pushback. And as a result of the fact that you like being a people pleaser, possibly, you want people to like you. You don't want to disappoint them. You go ahead and tolerate things for much too long, or you avoid difficult conversations, and firing a client feels like a difficult conversation for you. I will let you know that once again, conversations with my clients just yesterday about this very thing. When done correctly, the things that you are spending nights, weeks, months, sometimes even years worrying about rarely ever happen. What you are conjuring up in your head and that scenario, that worst case scenario, is not what usually happens and how it plays out, especially if you're doing it in a very client-centered manner, which we'll get into in a moment. But I just want to let you know that once you go ahead and actually do that, there is relief. It's a lot easier than you realize.
Totally.
And this also opens up the room for a new great dream client to step in and start working with you, maybe even two of them, because those headache clients require more time a lot of times, energetically focused, as well as real hours and minutes. So you open up the room for someone who really appreciates and respects you to step in and replace them.
Yeah, and I think that's a really astute point. And I think we manifest so much energy around the what if, and it almost encompasses us. And the truth is, if you are methodical and kind and businesslike, it's a very easy, not easy, it's a very procedural conversation, and then poof, it's gone. You never have to work for them. So then the question becomes, what are you going to do with all that energy? Now you've got all this time and space to open yourself up to what's next. So if an accounting professional is ready to determine who are the non-ideal clients, so we've said, okay, we've coached them up through this whole conversation to say who are these non-ideal clients, and they've identified, what's the next step? What are the next step for the audience?
Well, first of all, if anybody has any questions so far, I want to just make sure that you ask them, because we would like to answer them for you. But let me tell you how to start to go through this process. I suggest you first grade your clients, take out all their files or their virtual files, and give each client a grade from A to F, like you would receive a grade on your report card in elementary school. And it's possible to realize that maybe your biggest paying client is an F client. They're also the biggest headache.
What are they? I'm interrupting you, but what are some of those attributes? Because I kind of know where you're going, but what are some of the things that you're looking at when you're grading?
I think that it's really subjective, Jonathan, where you need to look at who are the ones that are a dream to work with. You love working with them. They respect you. They are very timely, and they take your suggestions and follow through. And maybe they engage you also. They bring something to the table. That's what I would see as an A client. And then the Bs might have maybe 90% of those qualities, but they don't have all the check marks. Cs, they're okay working with, but on the other hand, they're just not in that A category. So, and then the Ds are the ones where, and the Fs are the ones where you look at them on your calendar or know that there's a call coming in, or you have to respond to them, and you just start having this conversation and avoiding it before you even reach out and respond. They take up a lot of time. I find that with some of my clients, I can tell who their F clients are, because we might be talking about that particular person and the challenges that are coming up around that person for an entire coaching session.
Totally. No.
And because of the fact that they are requiring not just literal time, but they're taking up too much time in your head. They're the ones that go home and keep you awake at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Hold on. You said something really important that I want to reinforce. You said there's sort of taking up too much time in your head. I think that's really important that people pay attention to that note. Like, if you're festering on a client because you feel underwater with them, or, I mean, like, that's, to me, that's like an F client. Like if they're sitting in your head and really bothering you, that would be one of my like big red F kind of things, versus the more objective, they're not following procedures or they're not paying us on time. I mean, those are more tangible sort of, hey, this person doesn't pay me on time, or this person makes me late for a meeting or doesn't. I mean, those are easier to say, to measure than the subjective, as you said, of how do they make you feel.
However, Jonathan, some of it is personality, because let's say an attorney who is used to litigation, they're always questioning, they're always challenging. There might be one accounting professional that feels it's very confrontational, that attorney is always confrontational, and they just stress out anytime there's a potential conversation with that attorney, because that's that attorney's nature. And then someone else might have the same conversation with this attorney and not get that hit whatsoever, because they're not reading something about themselves. They're not feeling like they're being judged or criticized. They recognize that's just the personality of that attorney, and they have a different response to it. And that's why grading clients is very subjective, because one accounting professional might find that this litigator is a dream client. They love getting into the nuts and bolts of things and really dissecting it. And then someone else might be taking it very personally, like they're always being under attack. Therefore, it's really subjective. But once again, go ahead and look at all your clients, whether they're real files or virtual files, and grade all your clients A to F. Then when you're looking at them, recognize that there might be C and B clients, and those clients might actually be coachable to becoming A clients once you are having maybe some conversations and letting them know what it takes to be a good client. And they just didn't realize it. So therefore, that might be a communication thing where you want to be able to set some boundaries. You want to be able to let them know that I work better with you, or you'll get a better result when we do things this way. Or don't expect me to respond in 10 minutes to a text and then text me 20 more times. I will now respond within 24 hours. And therefore, give them some of those boundaries. Also, I don't want you to let go of all of your non-ideal clients at one time, because that might then create a cash flow issue in your firm. Because of that, what I want you to do is what I call one in, one out. And it's common within the bookkeeping industry and accounting profession. As one new ideal client comes in, go ahead and let go of a headache client that you no longer want to work with. And that way, you're not creating that cash imperative in your business. So go ahead and grade your clients, look at your B and C clients and see if any of them just need to be trained on how to be an A client. And then look at doing one in, one out. As you bring in one new client, then you let go of one headache client. So that is how you start to move forward.
So I want to make one little comment, because I had to learn this. And I had another accounting professional tell me after I made this statement that they had this negativity towards lawyers. And what it really was, to your point exactly, Loren, is that lawyers in particular, litigation lawyers, have a certain cadence in how they think and how they ask questions and how, direct those questions are. And it can routinely, you're right, be perceived as being aggressive or even disrespectful. But really, once you learn that it's not emotional, it's not about me, it's just how that brain is working, and give them the facts that they want, it actually is a very productive conversation. Okay. And I learned that early on, because I felt like one time I was talking to a lawyer and I feel like I was being deposed.
Probably were.
I was actually, you're right. They're like literally in reference. And didn't you say in two things that,
Yep.
like, yes, I said that. I don't know. Leave me alone. Buy it or don't.
Exhibit A, Exhibit B.
Yeah, it's like buy the damn software or don't at this point. So, now that they've learned all of this, now they know what to let go of first. How does it all work? Like, where do they go from here?
Well, this is the steps that I suggest that you follow if you're ready to let go of that headache client. You've had it, you recognize that they're costing too much time, they are coming home with you at night, it's just not worth working with them any longer. You want to send a letter to them and let them know that you're no longer available to work with them. Some people prefer to have a phone call. You can do either one. I prefer starting out with a letter first, letting them know that you are no longer available to work with them. What you want to do in the letter, and this is step number 2, is make sure the letter is not about them. You don't want to list all the reasons why you no longer want to work with them, because that's not good business karma. And people know other people. You don't want a bad review. You don't want this person bad mouthing you. You want to leave on the best of terms. And therefore, I encourage you to take the higher road. What you want to do is let them know you're making some changes within your business. Now, this is of integrity because maybe the only change you're making is you letting go of all your headache clients. But you're making some changes in your business model. And that's what you want to use as a reason for letting them go. And then once you do that, you also want to list what they can expect from you once the term is completed and they're no longer a client of yours. So let them know what they'll be getting. The other thing in the letter, what you want to do is include a final date for your services. Usually it's month end to be able to give them a clean set of books for the end of the month. And the 5th one is make sure you have the conversation to get paid in full if you usually invoice a client. So, what do you need to do to really take care of that and that you're getting paid in full instead of having to write off some expenses because you let them go, you gave them access to all their QuickBooks, they're up to date, but they didn't pay you yet, which means that you've lost some leverage. So send a letter, let them know that you're no longer available, make it about you and that you're changing some things in your business, list what they can expect, give them a final date for services, and really stick with that. Don't be lenient, stick with that date, and then make sure that you are paid in full. So those are the steps to release a non-ideal client.
And the comment I would make just to augment that is know that you're in charge and you have the power to control who you work with, when you work with them, and how you work with them. I think sometimes we feel slave to the income line and we feel like, the clients have the power because they pay us. And the truth is, you have the power, you have the control to say who and when and how you work with folks. And this letter, this workflow that Loren just laid out, well, that's your power to say, I'm making this decision. And when you make that decision and you end that relationship, and it might be tense for a few moments because no one likes to be fired. I know you're changing the business and you're masking it, but the lawyers are smart. Everyone knows you're moving away. And but that's just a moment. And the empowerment of going through that, I've seen it with my own practices and I've seen it with other accounting professionals. That's really empowering to this greater goal of where you want to be and working with the people who really inspire you, people who you love talking to on the phone, people that there's a Yiddish word called kibitz that you might talk a little bit. You might kibitz with them about their family or about the trip they just took or COVID or whatever it might be, that you can actually have a personal relationship with them. I remember I worked for a job, and I'm going to end right now, and I looked across from the people and I had nothing in common with them. I mean, I was sitting at a dinner with my peers and I quit the job within a month. I couldn't, it was a great job and I made a lot of money, but it was emotionally draining. I couldn't connect with these people and I couldn't see a future there. And I just said I had to cut, and it opened up all sorts of opportunities. So Loren, thank you first of all for this conversation. We've shared a lot of information, and some people might be curious to know, what's next, what they can do, how they might get engaged with you. So maybe share that as we close out today's session.
Absolutely. Thank you. I did put a link in the chat. If you feel that this speaks to you, you want to be able to stop being a slave to your business, you want to be able to increase your income without working additional hours, you want to lead with the value of what you offer instead of having to compete on price, then let's go ahead and have a conversation. It's called a Path to Profit Strategy session. It's an opportunity for us to really look at your business and what are some of the things that you could be doing to be able to move forward and really own the value that you bring to the table and communicate it with confidence. If that interests you, then I put a link in the chat at businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk. And that way we can see what's going on and how you can go ahead and start to earn more without having to work additional hours.
I also just reposted the links I did at the front end. There are 2 links. One is our meetup. It says April 14th. The date's going to change. It'll probably be after tax day. And the reason I'm reposting it is because I think it might be more meaningful after this conversation, in that we're going to be focusing on marketing. So we're not necessarily going to talk about, we'll talk a little bit about niching, but we're going to talk about tactics with marketing with folks, and dissect some bad websites and maybe show some good websites and things of that nature. And that might reinforce some of the conversations we're having, and we're bringing in our um, head of marketing, Caitlin. In addition, if you like this conversation, I reposted our last webinar that we did, the messy cleanup one, that Loren and I just did, so it's at your fingertips. So we're on the hour. I thank everyone who attended today. Both, I know a lot of the names, and I appreciate the partnership and the collaboration and the community we're creating. You know, it's really buoys and makes LeanLaw, and I just appreciate all of you. And Loren, as always, I appreciate you and the opportunity to have these conversations and this partnership and collaboration. It brings a lot of meaning beyond just, hey, we're selling software, to what I do and what we do at LeanLaw. So thank you. And I wish everyone a healthy next month or so. I hope everyone who wants a vaccination gets a vaccination, and life can start to bring back to normality, and a good tax season. I know all of you will be very busy with that. So I hope that that goes well for everyone. So I'm going to say goodbye to Loren and goodbye to the group, and end today's webinar. So take care, everyone, and thank you.